Hello, everyone, and welcome to my virtual lecture. My name is Hannah Amuka, and I am this year's juror for the School of Art and Design's Alumni Biennial 2021 exhibition on Biennial through August 28th. Today, I'm going to give you guys some insight to my curatorial process. The show spans 3 decades of artists from the School of Art and Design. We have 34 works in total in the gallery space. 24 of them are two-dimensional, and then we have 10 three-dimensional works. Alright, so starting with this side of the gallery wall, I grouped together these pieces ranging from our mahogany and bronze to clay, tea works, and then ceramics, all based on color tones. I wanted this side of the gallery space to feel really subtle. So these pieces that are mahogany based and bronze are all by Rachel Chansey. And Rachel Chansey's work has a lot to do with the natural elements. It has a lot to do with the internal stripes and how things change. She takes the female form as her main subject, and then she builds from that. Also with this wall, I wanted to add in these tea works because I think when it comes to works that have to deal with the natural elements, not only is she using tea as the medium, but she's also then showing the practice of making tea. So I thought it was really interesting, her back and forth between understanding how the medium moves and then also defining the images with deeper tones of her tea works. On this side of the gallery space, I wanted to highlight 2 artists, Taylor Chartman's sculptural piece, as well as Jane Irwin's ceramics. Starting with Jane Irwin, I was really interested in drawing to these pieces because they're almost sculptural in a sense. They are completely different in size and in shape. However, there's that same power of the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, that you can see in her works. They have a certain uniformity to them, but then in that same way, they are also abstracted. I think from the colors, the way that the colors seep through each of the works, you can see that there's almost a releasing of control when it comes to her final image and the way that these vases look at completion. There's that play between sculptural and also abstraction that I think is very interesting about Jane Irwin ceramics. To that point, I thought it would be really interesting to place Taylor's piece next to it. Taylor's piece, Wallow, also, as you can see, has a lot to do with the elements. The way she allows the scene that her female figure sits in to almost be overtaken by nature and earth, yet while still being a clay piece, I thought was a really interesting point between the 2 pieces and the 2 artists. And just not only in their tones that they're using, but of course the subject matter and in the medium. They are both artists that are working with clay, but as you can see, they work with it in completely different ways. However, they continuously string back the elements of nature into their art pieces. So I wanted to start the gallery space with Chris Boyko's abstract works. I thought that in placing these as something that the audience saw as soon as they walked in, something that would be a little bit more challenging, a lot to unpack in his abstraction, that it would be a great place for viewers to enter in the gallery space and to be confronted with the world that he has created. Chris Boyko, in contrast to William Cash with our traditional work, is very different in subject matter. I think, however, the technique can be seen in both of them. So I thought in placing these two artists side by side that you could just get the breadth of variety that the School of Art and Design has to offer between these two very different artists still working with oil as their main medium. On this side of the gallery wall, I wanted to highlight two artists, Hope Smith with her 3 ceramics, and also Kenneth Walters' photography piece. Hope Smith and Kenneth Walters, as different as their mediums are both working with line work in a really interesting way. The patterns in Hope's ceramics are completely altered by the last one, so no two vases are the same. Every single line is impacted by the last. However, there's still a continuous harmony in every single line that she places in her pottery. And to that same point, Kenneth Walters' pieces is also working with a lot of line work. He's taking a landscape image and then adding on to that. So it starts with this general image and then the lines are added on top of that. You have these very harmonious lines, almost topographical in a way, that flow through the entire image. They fall off the sides of the work, but it almost feels like there's a rhythm and there's a liveliness to his photography. I thought it would be really interesting to put them in conversation next to each other because there is this continuous harmony that goes from one side with the ceramics and that flows very effortlessly into Kenneth Walters' photography. In this area of the gallery space, I grouped these 3 works first based on color tones in all of the images and then also on subject matter. So first starting with the color tones, you can see from April's piece to then Chase King and Jan DiPierto, there's this very bluish greenish hue that follows throughout all 3 works. And then going into April's piece, I really loved how it fit within this area of the gallery because you start with this very specific figure and then as you go through the other pieces in this space, the main character gets more and more ambiguous. As you go into Chase King, you're getting far more abstraction in his work, and then ending with Jan DiPierto on this wall, you still have a figure that is outlined and that you can see, but it is far more ambiguous than it was when we first started in this space with April's piece titled In the Water. Within this space, we have a print and then 2 oil paintings. So even when it comes to medium, I thought that play between what our graduates are doing was really interesting to see. Just the variety in medium and even in the way oil can be applied. So I really like this area of the gallery because you get this very ethereal, almost fantasy and whimsical conversation going on between these 3 pieces as a whole. In this area of the gallery wall, I grouped these 4 pieces together from everything based on the framing to the subject matter, starting with both Marley Winters and Kenneth Walters. We have 2 pieces that are nature themed, that reference landscape, that reference the symmetry and the lines in landscape. We have photography, and then we have a silkscreen with Marley's gold pine. And then the pieces diagonally from this side, we have 2 portraitures. We have 2 portrait pieces, starting with Julie Davis. She has a self-portrait, and then ending with William Cash. He has a head study. I thought the way that these 2 pieces, the 2 portraits, are in conversation with each other was really interesting because you have Julie Davis's, which is a self-portrait. However, her piece does have half of the face covered with a scarf, but yet you still get a lot of personal identity from the matting that's almost a little bit more graffiti-like. When you go back to William Cash's piece, there's a lot of detail and a lot of technique in his line work in creating this head study. However, the highlights in this piece, when placing the image, bounced very well off of Marley Winter's Gold Pine silkscreen piece. And then also sitting it next to Kenneth Walters, there is a conversation that is going on between the colors and the forms throughout this entire wall. Okay. In this area of the Fine Arts Gallery, I grouped together these pieces by Courtney Smith and the work by Chris Noosh based on contrast in their colors. We have Chris Noosh, very vibrant, very active scene, and then we move to Courtney Smith. All three of her pieces are in black and white. They are far more simple in their line work. There's still this very tight and specific line quality that goes through all three of her landscapes. And then moving to Chris Noosh's piece, we have this very active, almost storytelling image that is right in front of us. He also has this element that makes his piece a bit more interactive. You have this 3D quality to it because of the fact that you can move this bear claw from one side of the image to the other. That also creates a very active foreground, middle ground, and background within the image. So I loved having Chris as an addition to the show because we did get, we had the ability to add in wood carving and the printmaking techniques in wood carving, as well as relief print and the printmaking techniques that are used in Courtney's relief prints. For the title wall of the Fine Arts Gallery, I wanted to highlight both Chansey King and Shane McDonald. And I chose these pieces because I think they play really well together based on the colors that are flowing through both of them, as well as how they both deal with abstraction, and then specifically Shane with the mixture of abstraction and traditional figure drawing. And moving from him to Chase King, he has image that is completely done in abstraction with figures that are easy to pull out, but that does take a little bit more time to flesh out. So I wanted them to be the start of the conversation that you got as you walk into the gallery space, immediately starting head on with two contrasting pieces. Thank you so much for tuning in to my lecture on this year's School of Art and Design Alumni Biennial 2021 exhibition. This was only a pinch of the works that are in this exhibition, so if you can, please come in and view the works on view now until August 28th, and tune in to the IG Live discussion right after.